Hello, everybody, and welcome. We're going to give it about a minute or two just to give time for everybody to get into the webinar today, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Hope everyone's having a good morning and afternoon so far. We'll give it about one more minute, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. All right. So we'll go ahead and get started. Hello and welcome again. Thank you for joining us for today's BBB Learning Lab webinar, Get Your Business in Print, featuring the Kansas City Star. I am Jenny Tukuski. I am the Programming and Communications Manager here for the Better Business Bureau Midwest Plains. Just a few quick housekeeping notes just to let you know. First, we are recording today's webinar, and with that, there will be a follow-up email that is sent out to you within 24 hours with a link to the webinar, but also the presentation materials that will be discussed and covered today. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we will make sure that we do answer all the questions before we end for the presentation. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Newspaper advertising continues to be an effective way for businesses to build brand awareness, strengthen community connections, and reach local customers. At the same time, today's most impactful visibility often comes from something deeper than advertising. It's your story. Every business has a story worth sharing, and local media can be a powerful partner in helping bring that story to life. In this webinar, you'll learn how building relationships with local journalists and news organizations can increase your visibility, strengthen your credibility, and connect you with the community in meaningful ways. We'll explore ways to make stories newsworthy, how to effectively engage in and with the media, advertise your business, and tips for earning coverage that helps your business stand out beyond your competitors. I am pleased to welcome Rashad Jackson, public service reporter for the Kansas City Star. Since joining the Kansas City Star in November of 2025, Rashad has focused on connecting readers with local events, community resources, and unique experiences that make the Kansas City metro area a vibrant place to live. As a newcomer to the area, he brings a fresh perspective on the community while helping residents discover everything the region has to offer. Originally from Chicago, Rashad previously reported for the Green Bay Press Gazette, part of the USA Today network, before graduating from Marquette University in 2023. So with that, welcome, and it is all yours, Rashad.
Thank you, Jenny. I appreciate you so much for this, and I'm looking forward to this. Hi, everybody. My name is Rashad. Last name is actually Alexander. That might have been a mistake when I was typing out my bio. That's my bad. But I am Rashad Alexander. Like I said, or like she said, I am a public service reporter for the Kansas City Star. I'm a Marquette University alum. That's in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, from Chicago. Any of my Chicago folks, what's up, y'all? And yeah, I've previously lived in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I've worked in Milwaukee, worked in Chicago as well. And yeah, that's just a little bit about me. And just very excited to speak with you all today. So we could just get right into it. So, what is the importance of news coverage? When we think about the news, there's a whole bunch of things that we can go about it. One way is it has a way of relaying information in a reliable yet consumable way. Sometimes people they want to lock in with the news, but they want to understand it more in a way that just suits them, whether it's on their phone or on TV or through the radio, whatever the case may be, as long as it's a consumable way for them. News also shapes the way things are remembered. I remember I was speaking with a high school class actually a few years ago, it was last year, but I was telling them one of the coolest things about being a journalist is being able to shape the way that things are remembered. We're a part of historic moments, but we also shape the way those things are remembered. And I think that's just one of the coolest things about this job overall. Um, it tells the stories of people and things that may not have been told otherwise. And this is going to play heavy when it comes to the local business and local media relationships that we have, because it allows us to meet these people who have businesses or whatever the case may be, and showcasing not just what their business is, but also who they are. And lastly, when it comes to business, it puts more eyes on your product. That's just how it is. Local media gets a lot of views, or a lot of people know who they are, and that tends to, bring more eyes to whatever topic that they're talking about, whether it's a business, a person, a pet, whatever the case may be. Down here is a byline from me 3 years ago, back when I was just up and coming into the game, I guess. And it was about this ramen shop that opened up in Chicago. The reason why I put this byline up specifically was I remember I met the owner himself, Rudy, and he was telling me how more people started coming to his restaurant after I put out the story. And to me, that was very significant. That was a very significant part of my career, because it showed me the real impact that my stories have. Like, people are actually looking at these things, and people are actually looking at these stories and actually doing something with it, not just looking at it and going about their day. And it's helping build people's lives, whether it's the readers or the people that we are talking about. So, why should you have media connections? Now, there's a bunch of ways we can look at this. Connections in general is always a good thing. It helps you out in the long run, but why specifically with media people? Well, for starters, news people tend to know people. Everybody knows a guy that knows a guy. But when it comes to news people, we interact with people every single day, whether it's business folks, people that work for the city, important people. Everyone's important. Let me take that back. Everyone's important. But you get what I'm saying. We tend to know people that can help lead the dots for other opportunities for people in the near future when you build that connection and whatnot. Now, if you're having issues slash noticing a pattern, a reporter might be able to look into that. This goes beyond the local business aspect. I mean, if reporters are hearing about things happening in an apartment complex, let's say, that many tenants are dealing with, they might want to look into that. And it could also apply to the businesses, where if they see certain patterns of, I don't know, spooky behavior, whatever the case may be, I don't know, reporters might be able to look into that. It's always good to have somebody whose job is to literally talk to people and look into these type of things, because you might learn a little something for yourself. And lastly, I said this in the beginning, building relationships tend to lead to future follow-ups. Well, I said something similar to this, but when you build these relationships with local media, you never know what that could lead to as far as future stories down the line. I'm gonna get into the nitty gritty as far as what kind of stories I mean, but when you guys build that connection and you guys know one another outside of just, doing the story and just, understanding each other, it leads to possible connections, whether it's with your business or with other things that are happening around the community that could lead to potential stories in the future. So, you want your business in the news. So, I'm going to tell you guys what I recommend as far as building these relationships. Because, again, like I said, these are very important, at least from the outside looking in. Obviously, I don't own a business or run a local business, but I've been able to speak with local businesses throughout my journalism career. And I have the do's, but we got to get into the don'ts first. So, let's just get into that. Do not do this. Don't reach out like you deserve to be in the news. It's so funny because somebody last night just texted me. They're not like a business owner or anything, but they texted me saying, "Hey man, let's set up some time to do an interview." I don't, it don't just work like that. You gotta approach it a little bit differently. I'm gonna have some examples for you guys, but being like, "Oh, I need to be in the news. You gotta have me," stuff like that. People don't like that. People don't like that, and kind of comes off a little rude or, thinking you own the place and stuff like that. And I get it. You gotta be confident, but also gotta, just read the room in the end of the day. Don't try to make any and everything a news scoop. This might be one of like my bigger pet peeves when it comes to being a journalist because granted, you can always find there's always news. Don't get it twisted. There's always news happening no matter where you are. But you can't think that anything and everything is going to be in an article. For example, right? I tell people this joke all the time. I used to live in Green Bay, Wisconsin, before I moved here into Kansas City. And in the community, guys would come up to me being like, "Hey man, we got this group of young men that are getting together, eating tacos for lunch today or something like that. You got to do a story on this. This is huge. You don't see this all the time." I'm exaggerating. Like I haven't gotten an example exactly like that, but I've gotten stuff similar to that. My point is not everything is needs to be in the news, so you don't have to send every little thing that's happening to the news people, if you get what I mean. And lastly, don't make the interactions with the reporter only transactional. Now, I understand it. We're humans, right? We tend to reach out to folks whenever we just need something or we're looking into something or whatever, and we're like, "Oh, they would be a good person for this." I understand that. It's just human nature. In the end of the day, try not to make everything so transactional and really try to get to know these people because that will go a lot further than just being like, "Hey, I got the story. What's up? Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this story? Blah, blah, blah." Like, you know what I'm saying? Let's try to make it more of that human connection where we get to actually know one another. Now, when you want to connect with the media, you got to reach out to folks with meaningful pitches and have a unique angle ready. The thing with this is, and I'm just, I deal with a lot of restaurants when it comes to my job at times. Don't think that just because it's a fresh new item on the menu that that's going to be the story right there. Everybody has a new item every day. That's just how it is. When it comes to pitching your story to a local reporter, have something in mind that might be unique and would be interesting for not just the reporter, but for readers all across your local area. Like, why should I care about this? Why should I look into this blase blah, or why should they look into this blase blase? Because that's really going to be the deciding factor when it comes to whether the story gets picked up or not. Also, be honest about your product slash business. Nobody likes when folks are telling fibs. Please just be yourself. We are not, I'm a serious person, but I'm not that serious of a person. Like I'm not if I see something weird, I'm not gonna be like, "Oh, go away." Like, no. Be honest about who you are when it comes to your business and your product, and I promise you it's going to go a long way. But I've seen people try to gas themselves up in ways that's just not them. And it's better to just be yourself in general, not just with your business, but in general. But when it comes to your business and you're talking to people who are reporting on your business, you want to be upfront about, whatever you want to share, because in the end of the day, we are we're supposed to put the truth out. We're supposed to put the truth out, and we get that truth from you, the business owners. Lastly, be prepared to answer questions. Lots of them. One thing I've noticed sometimes when I'm talking to sources, they get caught off guard a little bit when it comes to questions. Not necessarily like the questions I'm asking, but just I guess the amount of not the amount of questions, but the fact that they're getting answered this much. Like they're not media trained in a way. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. Not everyone is just media trained, but you got to be prepared to answer questions about your business and about yourself because certain journalists are gonna really dig in on you, good or bad, because they want to get the full picture when it comes to telling your story. Also, do not forget, journalists are not your PR. I say this because, and this kind of goes back to the point I was making prior, as far as not everything is going to be a news story, but also to the fact that we we're not reporting on you to promote necessarily you guys, if that makes sense. And don't take that in a negative connotation at all, because obviously we want to show the stories of local businesses and things like that. But that doesn't mean necessarily that we work for you, that, this is like a working partnership or something like that. It don't work out like that. That's just not how it is because of the code and the integrity we have as journalists. But at the same time, we will do what we need to get your story out that, has that unique angle and really showcases something bigger than just your business, but also just showcasing the people behind the business and things like that. So I got a couple of examples. These are not real emails, but I have a couple of examples of how not to contact a journalist. Let's go through the first one. And my apologies if you can't, I'm pretty sure you can see this though, if my screen is the same as yours. But we'll go to this first one right here, this on the top. Subject line, pick me, not them. Me with a bunch of exclamation points. All right, so rough start. Hey Rashad, my husband and I have this awesome new froyo business that is way better than the one you just reported on. You should totally speak to us ASAP, as this can be the biggest story of your life. You need to do this. Last time I checked, I don't need to be doing anything. So outside of the professionalism out of this, there's this demand that, you need to do this. Like, you got to do this. And that's just, you can't be approaching people that you don't know, especially. You can't be approaching people like that because it just starts things off in a bad way. You want to, if you're going to present yourself, please put your personality in that email or that call or whatever the case may be. But my favorite thing to say is just keep it cute. Keep it cute. Try not to do the most as far as like, oh, you got to do this. You need to, and here's why. Just keep it short or keep it professional. Keep it simple. Just don't overcomplicate it and just show me what's really happening when it comes to the story pitch. Let's look at the second email. An awesome story for the KC Star. All right, that's better. I don't know if it's cool. It's cool, I guess. Hey Rashad, I know I've sent you 12 emails in a row about stories at ungodly hours, but this one will for sure get you interested. Our business is doing red, white, and blue ice cream cookies for the 4th of July. I mean, who else is doing this in Kansas City, especially as a family-owned business? Come on. To the first part of that, I haven't gotten 12 emails in a row at ungodly hours, but sometimes PR people will just do that. It's just how it is. But you know, this is a better constructed email than the first one. The problem is red, white, and blue ice cream cookies for the 4th of July. That's not really a story. That if anything, that's something that you can post about on your business's Instagram or Facebook or whatever the case may be. But this isn't really gonna cut it. This isn't really gonna cut it. That's not really a story. One thing I will say I've done in the past is sometimes I will follow up with a business being like, hey, I hear you about this when it comes to your story, but what do you think? Is there anything else that might be going on with y'all that might be worth telling? Like, what's something about you that's interesting about when it comes to this business? Things like that. So you got to get ready for that as well. Some people, some journalists will push back on your story pitch in an effort to get a better idea. Because, like I said, the cookies is cool, but let's be for real. We want to make sure that we're doing something that's informative for the readers and something that actually tells the story about the business and who's running it and whatnot. This is the last example of what not to do. This is actually a real email I got. For context, I did a list of run clubs that are happening here in Kansas City. It says, "Thanks so much for covering the story on run clubs in KC. Unfortunately, I am disappointed that one of the longer standing clubs that has some of the most elite athletes and a presence at every major race was missed. I would encourage you to print an updated article or additional information in a future article that covers KC Endurance." Now, granted, I had a set list when it comes to the run clubs. I'm not trying to make excuses, but sometimes you just can't get every single run club in one list. But we know this now for the future when we make another list. So that's fine. The thing with the story, now granted, I'm not mad at them or anything because I think they said it in good spirit. But when you say things like I'm disappointed or, I would encourage you to do an updated article, it's kind of like you're trying to push the reporter around. Like, hey man, there's nothing wrong with constructive criticism at all. We take that every single day of our job. But at the same time, understand that, we have editors for a reason. People look over these stories because they let us know what to do, what not to do, what to include, what not to include, and stuff like that. So it's not always on the reporter, but also you just got to understand that not every single little thing is gonna get mentioned, but we're going to try our best to, and then that will lead to follow-ups and updates. So regardless, this will be a story in the future that will get updated and that will have that run club in there. But at the same time, when you're saying these things or mentioning your business or whatever, it's just a way to go about it. Simple as that. Don't try to come here being like, I deserve to be in that run club article. Like, there's a lot of run clubs out here, y'all. There's a lot. Now, here is how to contact a local journalist. Let's look at this first email. Subject line, story idea for the Kansas City Star. Hi, Rashad. I hope you are well. My name is Sergio Kitchens, and my wife and I are opening a new floral store this week. You may have heard of the Daisy's Road Flower Store in downtown KC, but we have now expanded to the Westport area. We also are doing a collaboration with Kathy's Cakes, the bakery shop in the Northland. I'd love to see if you'd be interested in this story for the food section at the Kansas City Star. Great. Great way to start off. Story idea for the Kansas City Star. Okay, story ideas. I like that. But also, they let me know who they are. They told me a little bit about them. They're the Road Flower Store in downtown KC, but they're expanding. That's even bigger. But also a collaboration with a popular bakery shop. That's something. Now, that's something, but at the same time, I'm still subject to ask a few questions as far as what they got going on, just to make sure we're on the same page when it comes to the story. But regardless, this is a good way to, make sure that you're getting a real story across to a journalist, minus the grammar mistakes. But, that's my bad on that, y'all. But you get what I'm trying to put down. Let's look at the second one. Hello, Rashad. My name is Marlo Stanfield, co-owner of Marlo's, the soul food joint in the West Bottoms. I wanted to pitch you a possible story regarding my co-owner, Avon Barksdale. During the day, Avon helps manage the business, but at night, he helps Royals shortstop Bobby Witt Jr. hit dingers as his hitting coach. With his connection with the Royals, we've rebranded the menu to a baseball theme. We'll soon be launching our 95 mile per hour sliders and our dinger dogs soon. I love to connect with you to talk about our Royals connection and our new menu. Okay. This is nice. This is nice because they're letting me know who they are, what their business is, and outside of, the fact that they got this new baseball menu, the real story is Avon working with Bobby Witt Jr. to help him hit some dingers. That's huge. It's like a day and night thing. During the day, he's the business owner. At night, he's a hitting coach. Stuff like that. When you present these interesting story angles, it tends to really get people's attention, journalists' attention, and gets them to really be like, okay, I want to learn more about this guy and what he's got going on. So I'm gonna holler at him. So it's stuff like that that will really make you stand out when it comes to your story ideas and whatnot. Take some a tea break, my bad. So, how do I get in contact with a journalist? The one thing about us, y'all, we not hard to find at all, I promise you. I've had times at like a different job where somebody thought I was the editor of my paper, and it's like, no, I don't get paid that much to be an editor, but at the same time, I did work at that paper. But it's really easy to just find us. I mean, if you see my name in print or online, you can literally just Google my name, Rashad Alexander, and then right there, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but you'll see my LinkedIn profile as well as my email right there, my work email. And then, of course, you can also find me on LinkedIn, Rashad Alexander. Just searching these people's names, very easy, not hard to find. Just if you search Kansas City Star Rashad, you'll probably find me right there, or Rashad, LinkedIn. I'll be right there. Also, newsrooms, even if it's TV stations, um, journalism, excuse me, newspaper outlets, they tend to have a list of staff listings on their website. You can find that on their homepage pretty easily. The Kansas City Star has an updated one where you can find my name, and many other names at the Star. And you'll see the reporter's title as well, which will show you who you need to talk to when who just to see who is who and all that stuff. One thing I always tell people when it comes to the local business, really when it comes to journalism itself, is you can obviously be in touch with the journalist. You can be the journalist yourself, but make sure you're doing some of the marketing on your end as well. I'm very big on social media. Not I'm big. I don't have a big social media following, but I'm very big when it comes to posting yourself and showing who you are and what you got going on social media. So it would be as much as cool as it is to have that support from a journalist. It's also good to support yourself on your own platforms and be able to build yourself up from there moving forward. I recently did a story on this guy named Window Wolf, and if you're from the local KC area, you might know who he is. He goes around to small businesses around town here in Kansas City, and he literally just he doesn't even do a food review, but he does like a first person point of view thing where he's eating their food, talking to the local business owners, and just learning about their stories because most of the time they are struggling. And it ends up just building them up right away. And it just shows the power of social media where if you really just put yourself out there and just show people who you are, it can make a whole lot of a difference when it comes to your business. Now, you ain't got to be the biggest streamer, the biggest streamer in the world, have the most followers and stuff. You just gotta be consistent and you just gotta, really believe in yourself when it comes to that. Because if you believe in yourself, you can just make a whole lot of things happen for yourself. That is mostly of what I have. Overall, I'm just once again very grateful to be on this panel. You guys, it's great to be able to connect with the local businesses of the Midwest and stuff like that and really showcase, what it takes, to connect with local media. Like I said earlier, when it comes to journalists, not only are we get to witness history, but we get to shape the way it's remembered. And, and whether that's something as huge as the World Cup right now or something like a local bakery or whatever the case may be, our job is to make sure that we're telling these people's stories the right way. So, once again, I just thank you all so much for allowing me to be on here. This is my email, ralexander@kcstar.com. if you have any questions, feel free to, hit me up. Make sure you thinking about what I put in these slides though. Make sure you're thinking about that. But, overall, I just appreciate you guys so much for allowing me to be here. And yeah, thank you. I'm out.
Thanks, Rashad. Um, One question that did come up was how can businesses follow up um, with their initial contact to you or any other journalist without feeling too pushy or overwhelming, but still getting their story told?
Yeah, that's a great question, honestly. So one thing I will say, there's nothing wrong with following up. I follow up all the time. My job is to annoy people in a sense. Like my job is literally to make sure I'm in contact with who I need to be in contact with. And we're all adults. We got our own lives going on and we tend to miss things. That's just how it is. Definitely give some of these journalists some grace because it's definitely, depending on what time of the year it is for them, it might just be a busy year. I mean, I was just out covering a World Cup game, not the World Cup game necessarily, but World Cup watch party last night, and now I'm here doing this. It's a lot that be happening and moving around in our lives, but nonetheless, don't be patient. Be patient when your time comes. Your time will come. If it's something that's a little bit more urgent as far as your story goes, definitely let the reporter know as soon as you can. Try to make that known first and foremost. Don't just wait till the second email because you don't want it for it to be too late and then they get back to you and it's like, well, it's over. Now try to make that known right away. And just yeah, like I said, just be understanding and just overall understand that, your story is important. Your story is important and we wanted if we could, we do every single person in the area, but that's just not how it is, unfortunately. But just be patient and just have an understanding that, it's a lot of stuff happening out here in the world nowadays. And we try our best to make sure that we're touching all communities and doing what we need to do to make sure that we're putting out people's stories and whatnot. But, that is a great question nonetheless, because it definitely comes up quite a bit.
What are a few simple things that a business should have ready if they want to be featured in a story?
A few things. One, obviously your pitch, you know, just a good basis of what your story is about. As far as like the person that might be the highlight of it or the angle or whatever, you want to always have that ready. Definitely make sure you have an easy way for us to know what your business is. If you have a short bio, please send that right away. Just so I can just look at it, or at least at the very least, if you have a website, I'd hope you guys have a website, but if you have a website, please, send it my way or even like social medias or whatever, just so I'm aware of, okay, this is what you guys got going on. Pictures are cool too. Pictures aren't always the best, or not the best, but not super important right away. But pictures are always good to have, whether it's of, I don't know, your product or whatever it is that you are trying to highlight and whatnot. Um, and just be ready. Just be ready because if you want me to talk with you with some urgency and then I'm like, okay, let's do it. You gotta be ready. Just be ready to, talk about whatever you got going on and just, also have people for me to talk to as well. So I don't know if you have a restaurant, do you have a chef I could holler at? Do you have a co-owner that would be willing to talk? Things like that. Things like that will definitely make the journalist's life a lot easier, but also will just help make the story go a lot smoother, and just make it a lot more fun to report on. I'm obviously going to be doing the dirty work and doing what I got to do to make sure that the story looks good. But, when you help that journalist make it a little bit easier, it goes a long way beyond just doing the story.
How do journalists decide which stories to cover in a typical week?
That's a good question. To be honest, a lot of that falls under our editor. And that's another thing. I think I mentioned it earlier, but that's one thing you gotta understand, or that I don't think a lot of people really understand when it comes to news. Some of the things we journalists don't, just because we're the reporters doesn't mean we have 100% full control on what happens. People will get mad at me when something doesn't get picked up or, highlighted or whatever the case may be. The reality is, if the editor don't want it, there might be some back and forth, but if the editor doesn't want it, there's not really much I can do. There's not really much I can do. I will try, but there's not really much I can do. So, and it can kind of suck sometimes because maybe it's something that I would want to highlight, but maybe we just have different views on going about it and things like that. But in the end of the day, all you guys just gotta understand that's just how it is. That we might have a little bit of leeway when it comes to it, especially if we pitch it ourselves. Typically, I can't speak on every journalist, honestly, because we all just have different beats and different ways of going about things. But, I think journalists, for the most part, do have a say in what they want. But in the end of the day, if the editor says something, then it might be hard to do some convincing from that point. But just know that we try when we see your stories and we are interested.
Nice. Last question I have for you then. What is one piece of advice you would give to every small business hoping to get their story told or their business promoted within you being a journalist and getting their story out there?
Um, I would just say to one, just don't give up. Just because we might ignore or not see that first email doesn't mean that you should feel discouraged about anything regarding your business. Please don't. We are just busy people, but we see you and we hear you, and we want to make sure we get you in some way, shape, or form, as long as it's applicable with what we got going on. So never give up, and just understand that the relationships that you build with your local media will go a very long way for yourself and for the business. And so I just tell y'all to just be mindful of the relationships that you build with these reporters, because you never know what it could lead to. And who knows, I mean, they could end up being Emmy award winning reporter for CNN and stuff, and then maybe they'll come back to Kansas City or wherever you're at, and then want to put you on or whatever case. You know what I'm saying? And now that's not the whole point, nonetheless. But I'm saying the big, um, it's just like the big picture of things. Like when you build these relationships, it tends to work better for you in the long run. So definitely just keep that in mind and just be respectful, of course. We love local businesses, but we love respectful local businesses. So just be respectful, be mindful, and yeah, just never give up and keep doing what you got to do. And one day when you see yourself in the newspaper on that news clip or whatever, definitely hold on to that because that's big. Not everyone can have that, and nobody can take that from you. So that's what I would say about that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Um, just real quick, I wanted to say, first of all, thank you to everyone who joined the webinar today, taking time out of your day to learn about the valuable insights and practical tips that Rashad has shared with us today. We're hoping that you're able to utilize them, and with your next big story your company has, you're able to possibly get it in print. Also, a big thank you to you, Rashad, for your time and your expertise, and letting us know how to better understand the ins and outs of what you do on a daily basis and what you look for and what makes a good story in a sense. So we appreciate that. Thank you. As a reminder, we will be sending out that follow-up email to you in the next few days or in the next 24 hours. With that, it will include a link to the webinar, the presentation information, as well as Rashad's email address. So if you ever needed to contact him, you would be able to. The slide right now that you're seeing, if you'd like to scan the QR code and leave a survey for us, we would greatly appreciate it. There will also be a link in that email to a survey. Your feedback is very important to us, letting us know how today's webinar was, but also letting us know what you would like to see in the future within the Learning Lab. We would appreciate all of that information and what would be helpful for you and your business. Otherwise, we thank everyone again for your time today, and we look forward to seeing you again in the future at one of our other events or webinars. Take care, everybody.